Hey everybody, it's Kairos, and today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of playing duo queue versus just playing solo. Is it better in the long run to play with another player of your elo and to use the synergies to your advantage, or is it too detrimental and distracting and ultimately hindering your development as a player? Those are the kind of questions we're going to answer. And this is a really common theme that I see in VOD reviews. There's a significant amount of low elo players who are duo queuing, but most of them haven't asked the question of whether or not it's really better for them in the long run. I'm going to help you think through the best answer for your own situation and your own climb. If you like this video, hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell so that you're getting notified of all my new content, and with that, let's get into the video. We're going to start with the cons of duo queue because I believe in most cases it's better to actually play solo. So I want to make sure that we get the most important parts of this video in at the beginning. The first con of playing duo queue is that comms can be very distracting. There's a few ways that your teammate might mess up cons and it'll actually be detrimental. A lot of low elo players actually communicate irrelevant information, so they might share things about their lane state, or about their build, or about different things that really don't impact the decisions that you are making on your side. And so they can just bog you down with all this information that's not valuable, but that you're still having to process through it, and it's taking up mental space that you could be dedicating to other more important things in any given game. You can't afford to be using that headspace to sift through useless information. They could also be communicating about non-game topics, things that aren't pertinent to what's going on right now. They might talk about stuff that's going on in real life. They might talk about a relationship or about school or work or any number of things going on in their life, which is all fine and good, but in the middle of a game, it can be very distracting, and for the same reason, it detracts from your effectiveness. And the worst kind of distraction for communications with a duo partner is raging, toxicity, and flame. Those are contagious behaviors, and if you are duo queuing with somebody who's, raging, toxic, and blaming everybody else around them, it's going to be really hard to not let that impact your mental. And it's very, very important over the long term to develop positive mental and to build resilience, which duo queuing with somebody who is really against that is going to be incredibly difficult, nearly impossible for you to develop those mental skill sets. And kind of like I mentioned earlier, the majority of low elo players are not going to have good comms. They aren't pro players, they aren't high elo players, they don't know what you need to hear from them. And so they might communicate too little and miss important things, or they might communicate too much irrelevant stuff like we talked about earlier. So most people aren't going to have good, crisp, clean, and useful comms. The second con of duo queuing is that it forces you to play around your duo partner, even if it's suboptimal. Most low elo players, as we all know, believe that they are the only win condition. They don't understand that anybody else could be the carry on the team. It always has to go through them. This applies to your duo partner. They are going to ask you, why didn't you gank me? I'm your duo. You're supposed to always gank your duo partner or roam to your duo's lane. And they really see their duo as a get out of jail free card. They will frequently pull you from what the best win condition might be towards a situational win condition, which is steamrolling down their lane. That is the best win condition that they see, and so they're going to drag you into that regardless of whether or not it's actually how the matchups should go. There might be a much better win condition on the other side of the map, but because they're your duo, you're going to feel obligated and they are going to communicate that you should go up and you should help them. Ultimately, this means you aren't playing the game honestly. You aren't playing it straightforward as the matchups should be played. You are playing towards a hope that you can snowball that lane, that you can tilt the enemy laner, and just win through that, which it is a strategy, but it is not going to make you a better player in the long run. It's going to make you better at exploiting mental weakness, which, I guess that's cool. That is the best way to play duo queue, is to steamroll one lane and hope that they mentally collapse, but that is not a skill set in and of itself that's going to make you a better player. And also, it at the end of the day, handicaps your teammate because they aren't going to learn how to get out of bad situations on their own when they aren't duo queuing. If they lose control of their lane and it's slow pushing away from them and they can't overextend, they're just going to call you to come and help them out, to help fix that situation, rather than them actually learning and processing through how they could prevent that from happening in the first place. And so at the end of the day, it will make them a worse player as well if they are learning to rely on somebody else to win their lane or fix the game for them. The third con of duo queuing is that the games are significantly harder. You're going to be facing opponents who are duo queuing as well in about 92 or more % of games. Riot fixed this last season, and now less than 8% of games have uneven duos. So if you have duos, you can almost guarantee the other team has duos as well that match your team. And so you have to have a lot of confidence that you and your teammate are better than the enemy and their teammate. So you're going to have to be able to match the enemy duo's coordination and synergy and actually be better than what they have, which isn't super easy to do. So you have to be incredibly on point and have a lot of faith in your duo partner to be able to pull this off. Also, duo queuing will affect your MMR. If you are the better player with higher MMR, then you're actually taking a bigger risk duo queuing with somebody else. Because the average MMR is below yours, you get punished harder for losses and rewarded less for wins. So that means your LP gains aren't going to be as good if you're the better player, and it will hurt your MMR more than it will hurt your duo partners. Now, if you're the lower MMR player, you actually get a higher reward because the average MMR is above your rank, and you also are punished less for losses. But this artificially inflates your MMR, where it's not sustainable without your duo. Because if your MMR goes up, then your duo isn't playing with you, you're going to be in games that you didn't earn that spot. You didn't organically climb or improve to get to that rank, and so you'll be in over your head and you'll get punished and sent back down to where you were before. And so it's ultimately not beneficial for you to get this LP out of duo queue versus playing solo queue and earning it on your own individually through improving at a skill. And fifth, it really does hamper your carry mentality. If you are the weaker half of the duo and you are relying on somebody else to carry the game, you aren't going to learn that specific skill set. And learning to get carried is a skill set. We're going to talk about that later. But it's not developing the skill of learning to carry games, to take them over and to close them out before the enemy team can capitalize on a mistake that you or a teammate makes. If you are relying on a better teammate to do that, then you aren't going to be able to learn to carry games and improve as a player. And you can't duo forever. Duos break up. Sometimes they promote too high that you can't duo with them anymore, or too low, or that they stop playing the game, or they have too much school. There's a lot of reasons why you would lose a duo partner, and then you are on your own, you're left without them. And so it is important for you to learn to carry for yourself and not to rely on other people. And now there are pros to duo queuing. It's just situational to who you are as a player and what you're trying to accomplish in solo queue. And so the first pro is that duo queue is a really good place to use as a clash and competitive training ground. With a duo partner, you can work on callouts, play style, champion synergies, and things like that, where there aren't really other good places to do that, because you aren't just going to roll up into a scrim or into a competition with somebody who you haven't played before. And you can really focus on just improving your communications. So like what I mentioned earlier, of communicating only the necessary information to your teammates, that you can do that in a duo queue environment and learn how to talk to each other effectively. And this also really builds trust for competition, for high pressure situations. If you're playing with somebody for, 50 games, then you learn a lot about how they handle different situations and what you can expect out of their performance and what you can anticipate them to do. So when the pressure does come in those situations, you've already been through it, you know what to expect, and you trust your teammate. Duo queue is also a place for you to implement macro concepts. So you can take individual things that you're trying to work on, whether that's rotations, back timers, or a certain gank setup or an individual play. This is a really good place for you to implement those in a low risk environment, and you can nail it down, get it ready to go for scrims or for a competitive environment. The second pro is that duo queue is a better way for smurfs to climb. So this is talking about two individuals who are both significantly higher rank than what they're playing in. So this is new accounts and things like that. It's not talking about boosting of one person who's high elo, one person's of low elo. So it's better for smurfs to duo queue because it gets them out of that smurf elo faster. It gets them into smurf queue, and then they climb and they're out of your MMR, and they are ruining less low MMR games where it's just one person who's in diamond playing in, silver or gold, taking over the game and ruining it for most of the people who are involved. So by duo queuing, they actually get out of the elo faster and it's better for everybody. Also, this will help you close out games faster. If you have a duo partner, it'll be more efficient with your time, get out of that MMR faster. And I recommend this for new accounts of your higher elo to duo queue up to one division below your main and then switch over to solo queue, which I believe is better for developing the skill sets later, but you aren't going to be gaining very much when you're more than one division down from where your main rank is. The third pro of playing duo queue is that you actually learn carry ability in two different ways. So if you are the better part of the tandem, if you're duoing with a player who's worse than you, you learn to carry. So you learn to carry a player who you know isn't as strong as you. Maybe they're consistent, maybe they're good at some things, and so you learn how to carry on your own and how to take games over. On the flip side of that, a really important skill set, which I think is significantly overlooked, is the ability to learn to get carried. So if you have a duo partner who's significantly better than you, it's a really important skill set to learn how to get carried. You can do this in solo queue as well, but when you have somebody who you know you can trust, who you've duoed with before, it's just much more certain that they will have a chance to carry. And this is important as a skill set of learning how to go 1-3 in lane instead of going 1-10 and making the game completely unwinnable for your team. Getting carried is very overlooked, and duo queue is a place where you can safely just talk on comp, say, hey, I'm going to lose lane gracefully, focus somewhere else on the map, and that's a very admirable and important thing to learn. The fourth pro of duo queuing is that sometimes it's just more fun to duo queue. I know a lot of people who actually won't play the game unless they can duo. So they're going to go play other games unless there's somebody who's one of their friends who's online and wants to play in duo queue. And also this can help to prevent burnout. If you're playing a lot of solo queue games, you don't have anybody else in there, it can mix things up and kind of get you out of a rut and just bring in something different to prevent the burnout in the long run as you're playing hundreds of games in a season. And another benefit to playing duo queue is that you can get a new perspective. If you're playing with a player who is better than you, especially at a lane, they're a really proficient laner, or if they're really proficient at macro, you can learn from one another about how your role interacts in the game as a whole. So you can learn from one another and actually improve as a player because of how integrated all the different roles are. Learning about another piece of the game will benefit you, but just make sure that you're only doing this with players who are better than you, because if you're taking advice from somebody else who's the same level as you, same MMR, then they can definitely give you bad advice, mislead you, and prevent you from understanding the game in a proper way. So at the end of this, I'm not saying you should never duo queue, but I would recommend that you take a step back and just think through the reasons why you're looking to duo queue, and ask yourself if playing with somebody else fits the goals of what you're trying to accomplish in your climb. And it's important to just recognize how it might be hurting your development as a player. That's going to bring us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching to the end, and I'll see you next time.